Part 2, unboxing your printer. So somewhere in the box you'll find a little instruction manual about the auto leveling probe, which we won't need yet, so we can hide that over the back, and a bill of materials, which they've ticked off as a pack to your MakerBot to make sure that all the pieces got there. On the back of this is a really handy piece of paper that we're going to keep by us at all times. This is the hardware size chart, so when you're building and they ask for an M3 16mm screw, you won't have to guess and accidentally end up with a 20 or a 10. You can use this chart and make sure you get the perfect bolt. So we'll keep that to one side because it is going to be very, very handy. Now the first tray, it's actually quite difficult to pick up. The easiest way is to open it, then pull it out. This contains a lot of hardware that we're not going to use straight away, but we will get to later. So in this little silver bag, this is the heart of your PrintRBot. This is the motherboard that will take all the instructions from your computer and do all the printing for you. And we'll leave that guy sealed for now because he's kind of sensitive to static electricity. Over here we've got our 4 stepper motors, and these are the motors that are going to drive all the movements of your printer. And we'll have a look at them when we get around to using them. And on this side we have an Acme rod, which kind of looks like a threaded rod, but it's a screw rod. It's made for moving as opposed to the threads on bolts that are made for connecting things. So this is the rod that your printer will use to move up and down in the Z axis or Z axis depending on where you're watching from. And lastly, there's 6 extremely shiny metal rods. So these are bearing rods. They're incredibly smooth and incredibly accurately milled. So they actually grind them perfectly cylindrical, so very, very delicate rods. And the only thing that should ever touch these will be the bearings that use them. So for now, we're going to leave all of these pieces in the box where they're safe and nothing's going to hurt them. In the bottom of your box, you'll find all of the toys. You'll find a power cable. And because PrintRBots come from America, it'll be an American cable. So unless you're in America, the easiest thing to do with this is file it somewhere where it's not going to cause any issues. You'll find a bag containing all the wooden pieces, and this is actually the parts we're going to start with to build the PrintRBot. So most of the frame's built out of wooden pieces using box slots and T-slots, and we'll look at that in a second. What you'll also find in here are random bags of bolts, all of which we need to put into our specially crafted parts box so we don't lose anything. You'll find the aluminium print bed, which is what we're going to print onto by the time the print is finished. You'll find your power supply, which is what's going to feed your printer when it's hungry for electricity. There's a big bag of bearings that contains all the bearings your printer will need, so we can leave that in the parts box. We will be using those. You find a small roll of filament just to get you started. This will keep you printing for a good few hours, and then you're going to need more. You'll find a bag of zip ties, cables, and cable management tube. So we're going to use this a little later on, so we'll leave it in the box for now. And lastly, you'll find a bag of seemingly random, awesome looking pieces. This contains Allen keys, the print head, and the USB lead, and a few other spanners and so forth. So we're definitely going to have to pull that apart and get the parts in here and the tools in here. So that's going to be our next job, separating these parts, and then we'll get on to building our PrintRBot.